This is Barry Martin Snyder. Our website is luminousself.com. I want to share with you an experience that I've had over about the past, I'd say, year and a half or 2 years that relates to the difficult and sometimes painful dissolution of a whole very subtle spiritual identity that had to do around timelines and possible and probable futures. For all of this life since my awakening, and probably in previous lives, I've oriented around the visionary capacity to see future possibilities. I would be shown various possibilities, and usually one that was the most probable future that would exist out in the future. Oftentimes masters would come and tell me these things. And then I would watch events confirm that possible future through things that would happen in everyday life. Like I'd read an article that talked about something related to why that future was probable. And over time, that particular timeline or possible future would become a probable future. Would come into a more solid sense of existence until I could feel it becoming a knowing of an actual manifestation and process. And everything would just congeal and come to a focal point where that knowing would manifest in the now, momentary experience of the living of life. For instance, there were years where I went back and forth between Kauai and New Mexico. And I would be in New Mexico in, let's say, April, May, and I would kind of sense out in the future how things would unfold and when it would be time for me to go back to Kauai. And then events would come in. Somebody would tell me something about where I was living and a rental or what was happening, or somebody would say, hey, I'd like to meet you in the fall in Hawaii, or something would happen that would confirm that timing. And again, this would all be confirmed, reconfirmed until that possibility became a probability till it became a reality. So this became such a way that I oriented that it became a very deeply unconscious way of being. It was a holographic identity pattern. But there was still an I, a me, so to speak, that was in and behind and woven into that way of being. So after the fire, when our house burned to the ground, this major shock happened because I had seen timelines of leaving this form on the farm where we were living that involved a future timeline of a solar event and us leaving our bodies during this solar event. That continued to feel like it was moving in that direction and being confirmed by events in the world, and our reality coalesced around that till I felt it was definitely the probable future that would come. And then whammo, January 14th, 2023, that probable future disappeared within an hour as that home burned to the ground. It was a complete and total shock to my sense of self, in that was not in this consciousness anywhere as a possible future. it had not been entertained or seen on any level. And so that caused a major reorientation. Who am I? What's this about? How do I orient? And so I was shown again potential futures and possible futures that we would go to the coast, be here in Humboldt on the Redwood Coast, but there would come a time when we would be asked to go back over near Mount Shasta for this last part of the cycle. I was shown that, and it felt important because it felt like that's where we were needed, and events would transpire on the coast that would not make it the best place for us to be. Karen was getting none of this. She was enjoying life over here on the coast, living completely in the now. She never oriented out of possible futures like I did, very much more in a feminine, spontaneous way of being without a sense of those futures. And we tracked always right on together, because in the now, in the moment, we always tracked, we always found ourselves moving together. But she didn't see these possible futures as much as I did, although she did see some. It wasn't that she didn't. But that was sort of a gift I had in a way that had been developed from previous lifetimes, where I was in charge of and managed large groups of people and the movement of big enterprises and things. Well, I needed to develop that ability. So when she wasn't getting those things, my sense of now was different than hers. And it included a now that covered possible futures and probable futures. And hers didn't have that anymore. It was just being here now in Humboldt, and she felt this was where she belonged. So I began to become conflicted because I didn't feel we were tracking anymore. I thought, well, why doesn't she get a sense of these possible futures back over there? And she got them sometimes, but they would fall away. This became more and more of a kind of a tension between us, where how do we work this out? Because my soul was feeling like, yeah, this is the way that's going to play out in the future. And there's a timeline there that we'll be following. So there was subtle but definite still ego investment in that at a spiritual level. That there was still a sense of a doer that thought it was controlling something on some subtle level just by holding that vision and having her align with me in it. And that was really a source, again, of increasing tension between us, because she didn't know how to align with me, and I didn't know how to align with her. And what do we do with that? Do we have different future realities unfolding? Is she going to be living here and me over there? But that didn't feel right, because it felt we were to be together. So it was like a catch-22, double binds. It was more and more tension building up in our connection on a very subtle but psychic level. And then I began to hear that the answer was to live completely in the now. So I explored that because my sense of now was not just about this concrete moment in 3D. It was a sphere larger than that included these possible and probable futures. And then what they showed me is that timelines are collapsing. That as we spiral into that 0 point, that singularity between the dimensions, we're accelerating faster and faster through shorter and shorter cycles of manifest experience. And so these timelines are being rewritten so rapidly now that holding on to any possible future can become a real limitation, which it had for me. Because those possible futures I saw were laid out to me in the beginning, end of 2024 and 2025. They hadn't been updated in my consciousness in any way. And it had changed dramatically in that short period of time, so that my feeling we were going to leave here in the summer of 2025 had fallen away. Karen felt, if anything, it would be in a fall. And I was feeling this tension because she wasn't feeling that. And when they said, just live in the now, I realized I had to give up that whole identity of possible future timelines and realize that they may mean absolutely nothing of anything I'm shown. Detach from them completely, because those timelines can now be rewritten momentarily to complete other futures. And I saw the gift in that. What that means is that all these futures that are playing out right now, as we perceive them, of possible wars in the Middle East, of possible climate catastrophes, all these different things that are there are only on timelines that exist in this now. But the next now, all those timelines can be rewritten again and will be rewritten again and again, which means the potential for miracles opens. Because miracles, what a miracle is the collapse of timelines. It doesn't mean the same evolutionary processes don't happen, but they happen in consciousness in a collapsed way. In other words, in consciousness can make a shift, a quantum shift. And when that happens, the realizations collapse in a linear sense. We didn't have to go through A, B, C, D, and E to get to F. All of a sudden, we get from A to F, and the integration, the realization of all those intermediate steps is contained in that one leap as an epiphany, as a revelation. And we're seeing that in the acceleration in our work. People are doing in 1 or 2 sessions what it took months or years to do, because there's a collapse in what's possible to realize, what's possible to open up to in terms of new incoming consciousness. And those realizations can be exponential now. Now, when that happens, timelines immediately shift, because possible futures are a reflection of our state of consciousness in the now. So the futures that we experience now have been the result of where consciousness was in the past. But as that shift of consciousness happens now, immediately future timelines and possibilities occur. So because these cycles of realization are so compressed now, so these timelines are compressing, dissolving, and morphing so fast. This was an immense shift for me to see this. It's like all the subtle fingers of self came off the wheel of timelines and possibilities in any way think that they defined my sense of self or the way I navigated in this whole multidimensional universe. It came into I know nothing. I know nothing about the possibilities and the probabilities of the future. I may see certain things, but I don't really know anything, because knowing only happens in the absolute now when manifestation is occurring. And those manifestations are occurring so quickly now and so rapidly that we don't even need to adhere to timelines. All we need to do is continue the process of deepening our realization with the God within and the source of that God within, which is the one God of all that is, which we are a holographic fractal aspect. And as we deepen our realization of that, we become the imaginal cell in this body human that is rewriting the whole story. As the timelines break down, as the old reality disintegrates, and the caterpillar of third-dimensional human experience and existence dissolves into gelatinous material, we as those imaginal cells are the coherence points for whole new futures to occur. And as this thing dissolves more and more as we spiral towards the 0 point, the possible futures unfold in greater magnitude of possibility and probability. So the path beyond the 0 point to the fifth dimensional Earth can change dramatically, quickly, instantaneously, so that potential futures that involve more destruction, chaos, can simply cease to exist. So it becomes so important to realize that we really don't know anything based upon anything we're seeing about possible futures of their likelihood of manifesting. They're just possibilities that are really more and more ephemeral with each passing day. It's to live completely in the mystery of I don't know, because we don't know. But as the luminous divinity in the core of our being is more fully realized, as we die to any sense of separate self and merge into that, that is the source of infinite possibility, of miraculous unfoldment. And that's the only thing that's left in my sense of things. Completely living in the mystery, completely living in the now. I know nothing, I do nothing, and as a third dimensional being, I am nothing. That's the formula that I have embraced as my mantra. I know nothing, I do nothing, and I am nothing. And this has enabled me to transit out of all those subtle levels of identity into a nothingness that it is also the everythingness, the allness, with an increasing level. And every day, the universe shows me where there's still pieces of identity that's clinging to the I, me, mine sense of self. And as they come up, I intend to embrace them, dissolve and die to what that was, and come back to the moment. And this light in the center of my being expands, and the love unfolds more greatly, and the ability to be here now with all it is deepens and expands. I wanted to share this in my journey, and Karen and I just passed through a whole point where we came to this together, and it blew open into a whole new dimension of experience together. It was a total Platonian scorpionic contraction to a little knot psychically between us around this, until it became such a tension. We looked at each other and said, we can't go on this way. This is too intense. And that's been a hallmark of our connection, which is our combined astrological charts have so much Pluto and Scorpio in it in hard aspects that it's always been about dying and being reborn together. And we did it again. But wow, it just opened up so much more light and space and joy and love and unity. I just wanted to share it with you. I hope this might be relevant to you in making your journey ahead. If it is, please share in the comments below any relevance, additions that you get about it, things you want to add to this wonderful journey we're all on together in this oneness that we are, finding our way, because we're literally the future that is coming into existence in this now is infinite in possibility. It's never existed. No matter what we think it could be, it's that and more. And so in this now, anything is possible to unfold, and we're creating this together. The possibilities as we merge in this oneness of consciousness continue to expand and unfold into wonderfulness and imagination that we can't comprehend. And yes, there may need to be more dissolution on a physical level. It looks like that's now a definite possibility and probability. It's happening around the world. We can't deny that is happening. But that all is changing in the twinkling of an eye as we evolve individually and collectively. As the frequency of the planet goes up in humanity, anything is possible. Not to hold on to anything, but also not to deny anything in the now. So, enough said for Barry this morning. Just want to share that all with you, give you my love, and again, invite everything and all that you want to share. What resonates with this, maybe what doesn't, or whatever, confusion, what you get. Enjoy this journey together. Much love to you all. Blessings.